All right, folks, in this lesson, I got a request to go over how you might approach a solo over Knockin' On Heaven's Door by Bob Dylan, obviously covered by a whole host of people. So let's start with the chord progression. Anytime we're trying to figure out how we might approach a solo, we got to figure out what's the chord progression. What key is it in? What scales might we have at our disposal? And then we got to talk about the chord tone targeting. So it's G, D, A minor, then it's G, D, C. So it's in the key of G. It's a 1 to the 5 chord, to the 2 chord, and then it's a 1 to 5 to a 4 chord, okay? All based out of G major, okay? So I don't know that I would use necessarily a straight G major scale. I'd probably start, I think a good home base here is G Pentatonic Major, or kind of like your G country scale. Okay, so I'm around here, you know, if you know all the shapes. You can play it. Anywhere you like, but I think this is a good spot, right? We're all kind of familiar with that. Pentatonic major, it's like a pentatonic minor scale. You just move it back. So you start here. So it'd be E pentatonic minor is the same as G pentatonic major. So I'm playing this E pentatonic minor fingering, but my root note is G. Here, here, here. Okay, so there's kind of three things that we can use. I would, on a tune like this, I would definitely recommend learning the melody. Because if you get lost, you can always go back and just play the melody that the singer would be singing, or something around that. I think it's a good place to start. Then you have your scale. We've already determined that G pentatonic major will work, and then, or it's a good home base, and then we will talk about the chord tone targeting stuff. So let's see. The melody is basically so it's right here, B, which is the third of G, so it's a chord tone. Then we go to D. He's hitting that. That's A, the second fret G string, A, chord tone. That's the fifth of D. Then we go to A minor. G to A, right? And the G would be like making it a minor 7. It's the flat 7, so you could use that as a kind of a chord tone, right? Then the second time around, it's so when we go to the C, he's hitting that E, which is the third degree of the C major chord. So you can always just noodle around that melody. That's a good safe spot, you know? You come in on a solo, you get So let's talk about what I just did there, right? I'm just trying to keep it simple here. So first I was basically just kind of playing around the melody, right? But then I went G to F sharp, but that's in that D chord, so I'm kind of following the chord tones. And I went to there to a E, which is in the A minor chord, okay? And the way to look at this, I think, that last chord of the progression, it's either going to be A minor or C. And I've heard different versions where they never go to the C. They just stay on the A minor. Some people go to the C. The A minor and the C are really close. They're relative chords, so you can kind of think of them almost the same way. So another thing you can do now is then take that melody up higher. You know, bend into the melody. So what I did right there is coming off like the C. You look for all these little chord shapes that are part of that caged system, right? If you don't know the cage system, look that lesson up. I've done lessons on the cage system. But this is a C chord, right? Same as this, right? Same as this. We're just up higher. So I just kind of picked out some notes from that chord shape and landed right there on the B, which is part of a G major chord. If you look at, here's a G major chord right here. Okay, so you look for these chord shapes, then it's easier to find the chord tones, right? So there's a G, here's a D, and then an A minor, you know, you could play here. And then C, you could go here or here. So study those chord shapes so you can find your chord tones easier. We got a D here, right? So we can go. Now I'm kind of using the Pentatonic Major scale. I'm kind of staying around there, but then targeting some of these notes of the chords going by. That's what's really going to make it sound a lot better, okay? Because you can hit wrong notes. Well, out of the Pentatonic Major scale, I mean, if you just play the scale, you're not going to really, it's going to sound a little not quite right. It always sounds better if you can target some chord tones. So, you know, find those chord shapes. That'll help you target those tones. Then you got the melody to play around with, right? So I got a little jam track here on my pedal, my loop pedal. I'm just gonna kind of noodle around and you can kind of see, maybe get some ideas here. All right, so here we go. Okay, so that was just me kind of noodling around to show you. So it's all really about hitting those chord tones. So if you get lost, go back to the melody. But this is a cool little lick because we're bending. That's the 6 of G, so I'm on the G. Not necessarily a chord tone, but scalular. But when I come back down, that's D right there. That is the 3rd of the A minor chord. And you can do a little chromatic thing right here. Starts to sound a little like, you know, Jerry from the Dead or something. And land back here on the B, which is a chord tone of G. So just, you gotta look for your chord tones. So for G, you got the 3rd here, the 5th there, root, 3rd, 5th. Then for your D, right here is a D chord. I mean, when you go from D to the A minor, listen how nice that sounds. A little chromatic thing, that always sounds cool. Chord tone of G. Now we go to D. Slide up, that's the root note of A minor. And we're on the A minor chord, right? Back to G, D, A minor chord tone, right? So when you are noodling around and trying to come up with these lead lines, you should kind of hear the chord changes without hearing the chords. So within your melodies that you're making, if you can kind of hear the chord changes, then I think that you're doing a good job then. Endless ideas, right? So hopefully this helps. It's kind of like a broad overview of what you can do. Find the melody. Think a scale that kind of fits, right? And then the chord tones. Find those chord tones. And then those are kind of the 3 things. I think you put all that together and it's going to sound pretty good. So hope that helps. That's overview of how to solo over Knockin' on Heaven's Door.